Hi, everyone. How are you doing? Thanks so much for joining us. So I just want to introduce our panelists that are up here with me. We have Susanne Daniels, the global head of content from YouTube.
Woo woo!
It's going to get rowdy. I'm just warning you right now. Craig Erwich, head of content for Hulu. Jason Kassin, the co-founder and CEO of FilmTrack. Thank you. Everyone gets a woohoo. Kevin Reilly, the president of TNT and TBS. Jeff Wachtel, president and chief content officer, NBCU Cable Entertainment.
Yeah.
And my co-moderator, Courtney Williams, the regional director of Parrot Analytics. Courtney, you want to kick it off for us?
So we've been looking a lot today in various forms of data and how that's working and the new sort of metrics. So the question based on this group, how do you define a hit today? And how do you look at that? What are the metrics and the benchmarks that you use, and how do they change between what is domestic versus what is sort of a global metric for it?
Who's going first? Take it away. You know, one of the crazy things about multi-platform world is you can almost define a hit the way you want to, right? I mean, people always have sliced and diced, demos. Oh, we're the #1 show among 18 to 23-year-olds who skateboard. But now it's easier than ever. So it's harder to measure, but it's kind of easier to claim victory. I think linear still is really important. There's a almost built-in desire to know how you did. So everybody still checks the next day, but we all know that really the monetizable ratings, of course, are the most important for a network, so L3, C3. For a studio, you're in a much longer game right now. And so with not only other windows, but other windows that are paying extraordinary amounts of money for the opportunity to have your show, there's a much longer way of measuring success.
Anything?
No, you know, one thing I would just add to that, because we can debate the metrics or whatever, the flawed measurement system, but that old showbiz adage, which, you know, nothing a few hits can't fix, you know, I think that's a time when that has sort of outlived its usefulness, because on the one hand, if you are in the content business and you don't have anything that resembles something like a hit, you have genuine problems. On the other hand, it used to be, hey, I got a few hits, I'm in great shape. That's actually not the case in terms of the business for some of the services that are here, because a few hits today, there's almost nothing short of, I'd say, Walking Dead singularly that moves the needle on sort of the bottom line in and of itself. And in many cases, well, there's a lot to unpack underneath that. You guys can take it away.
Well, you know, it's interesting. It's been an interesting change for me to go from linear to digital. And in the linear world at MTV and Lifetime, you know, I cared about the live number, the L3 number, the L7 number. Now I'm happy that a show like Foursome, when we launch the second season, I see a 50% uptick in subscription for the first season, as well as an uptick for the second season. And so it's a longer game, and it's a global game for me as well. And it's a game about views and subscription, and so it's a longer term game. It's interesting.
I mean, I think hits for us are defined by reach. You know, we want to know at the end of the day, you know, how many of our subscribers love the show. But we spend a lot of time talking about engagement, which is intensity of the attraction that a viewer has with the show. You know, we're really looking for people who not just kind of like the show, but people who love the show. And then I would say for us as well, it's very much about getting in the conversation. You know, we are using these shows to, you know, sell a service. And so we really look at how a show is penetrating the zeitgeist in both A, measurable kind of social conversation, but B, kind of that undefined quality that I think, you know, we all know, which is you're online at Starbucks and you overhear somebody talking about the show, which, as unscientific as it is still extraordinarily powerful and rewarding.
I think that's very scientific, by the way, the Starbucks measurement methodology. But I agree with Susanne, what you were just saying about the internationality. You really have to look at a hit. You have to examine not just the platforms, but the platforms and dissect them by geography, by language. You can have hits in a language medium. You can have hits, obviously, in different mediums in different ways. So it is a little bit of a silly thing to say, well, I could be just a hit here and I could be a hit here, but it is the nature of narrowcasting, and it is the nature of being able to measure an audience, and also, particularly if you're bundling advertising along with that, to be able to target that to so specific. I'm sure we all experience this, when you go online, you're like, how the heck did they know I wanted to go skiing this weekend? That is all there. I think that's how you measure a hit sometimes, is how closely you're getting to your audience, that engagement you were talking about.
With that said, I'll tell you, sometimes I look, we have, it's well documented, 1,600 something shows between in the pay universe, SVOD universe, and broadcast. And of the measured universe, sometimes I look up and I say, oh, such and such picked up their hit show. But I was like, I've never heard of it. And I look it up and I go, that in the measured universe is number 892. So I don't know what they call a hit, but I'm pretty sure that's not one.
I also think it's also a function.
all relative.
It's a function of,
I guess.
It also becomes a function of cost, because I think you can measure, a show that costs $500,000 an episode, you might measure differently than a show that costs $5 million an episode. It becomes about, efficiency is another lens to look at whether something's successful or not.
But it is with all that competition, there is a lot of betting you have to do on a show, because now, before, I've been in the business a long time with a lot of you guys up here. Before,
Don't drag us down.
We all started as children.
You're in it with me. Before, you cared about, you wanted to see an uptick in season 1. And while you still do in terms of ratings, now you have to just say to yourself, your point about zeitgeist. Is it in the zeitgeist? Do I feel like it has momentum? If I pick up a season 2, will that? We've literally done testing where we've had very sophisticated audiences say in the testing, well, I wait to see if they pick up a season 2. Then I go back and then I say, I'll take the time to watch season 1 because now I'll invest, because this series is going to be, I don't want to waste my time on a show that's going to be canceled.
I'll double down on that one. I have friends now, and you can imagine how frustrating, who say, oh no, I know the show launched, but I'm not going to watch it until the season's over, when I can watch it all at once. And my feeling is, great if you could send a $10 check, because we're not monetizing your view. So thank you for waiting, but it's how I view things often as well.
So how patient are you willing to be, given that that's how viewing habits have changed? Can you wait for a second season, to see if those numbers are going to pick up?
Sure, you have to, actually. It's really, I think, a byproduct of having so much out there. The consumer has a lot of choice. I've said before that the first season is almost viewed as a marketing vehicle at this point, because you are building long-tail value to a certain extent. You have the consumer behavior really wanting to binge, wanting to catch up. At any given time, we have very clear statistics. When things go into a pay or an SVOD window, somebody who loves one of Jeff's shows at any given time is watching, 50% of the audience is watching a prior season. And that's a whole business issue for those in the linear world. Mm-hmm. But really it speaks to, there are very, very few shows that are very clearly a win right out of the gate in season 1.
I think you have to believe in the show. But I agree, we've started almost thinking about, in terms of marketing, season 2, I try and call it, it's like really season 1.5. Because it's still new, you're still growing the audience, and you still have opportunities to kind of recruit new people.
You're not only competing for viewers, but you're also competing for content creators, given the marketplace where there's so many new players coming into it. So what's your unique selling proposition from that point of view? How do you get content creators to come into your door?
Look, we all know that, to use a sports analogy, it's like an expansion league right now. If you're the 12th best shortstop in a 10-team league, you're not playing. If it's a 20-team league, you're in high demand. And that's where we are in the talent world right now. And we're all chasing great people. I think everybody here believes in original voices, things that you've heard a million times before, but the passion for the project and the original voice, the ability to execute, and what we all try to do is create a safe haven to be able to force or support the best possible vision for the artist. And it's a unique relationship, and it's a wooing process. I think it's harder right now because there is such incredible demand, but I don't think the fundamentals of that have changed.
And you see that with I have a lot of peers who are, I guess you'd call them independent filmmakers of some renown that typically would have eschewed television or episodic, who are now embracing it fully because they see, as we all do, it's a golden age of episodic content creation, and there are so many opportunities, whether it's with Hulu or someone like this, to create something that's original and that has a rhythm that's different than something they may have done even 5 or 10 years ago when they did TV, because the ins and outs, the rhythms of the show are just not as constrained. There's a challenge with that as well, but it really has opened up a lot of creatives to embrace something that they might not on a natural path have done so.
For YouTube, it's been, again, a different set of challenges from linear, in that things I talk to creators about and think about along with creators and studios is, is there interactivity? Are there ways for this show to succeed on this platform in a way where the platform can really benefit it? So, YouTube is more of a two-way street than linear, and so I think about that in terms of what I can offer the viewer, and the show can benefit from it.
It's really a dynamic thing in a way, because I agree with Jeff, some of the age-old things. I mean, a creator comes in with looking for a cluster of assets, like what resources. What are those resources? First of all, you have money, okay? Because if you don't have money, you can be the greatest guy ever, and we'll see you in the next gig. So do you have the money to really be a competitor? Do you have a base of audience? Do you have resources? How has your brand been applied to other artistic endeavors where they go, oh, I like that you put that on. I like the way you supported it. It feels good. It's an interesting thing that's happening right now. I won't paint with a roller here, but and I won't name any brands, Netflix. But you're seeing that, the upside of Netflix, of their momentum and their user experience, and the their use of their resources, where, hey, I can get my series made. They ordered things 2 series. They have a voracious appetite. Conversely, I'm finding, for the first time in a while, we're seeing now people kind of going, wait a minute, it's great if your Orange is the New Black and you won the trophy, but when you're one of the many, many other pieces of content where it dropped one day, we called and we said, how are we doing? And they went, you're doing well. And like, nobody was talking about it. There was no premiere party. There was no marketing around it. People say my mother didn't even know it was on, so to speak. So
He's
that's
not talking to his mother, that guy. Though.
No, but there's a variety of things that come into place of that.
Right.
What do talent, what do artists want to have their experience be?
I think that brings up an interesting point in terms of the marketing and how, as that's changed, and I think Susanne's talked about this in the past, the marketing itself has changed of these things in terms of how you market it to the audiences and the younger audiences, and whether it's SVOD or not. How do you guys individually now measure the success of those marketing initiatives, particularly on a slow burn, for instance?
Well, I can say, one of the things that we, in terms of our marketing approach, is we're trying to not be oriented towards an opening weekend mentality. We're an on-demand platform. We'll have the shows that we'll have on for many years. There are always multiple opportunities, or we're looking to create multiple opportunities to reintroduce or introduce the show to a new person. So in terms of even how we spend our money, we really try and take a long-term approach to season 1. It's not just about, okay, we got to get people there Tuesday night so that it does well in the Nielsen's, or it's got that opening box office. It's a long run, and quite frankly, sometimes you might even really want to put your foot on the gas at season 2. Because then you even have more assets, and it's an even deeper experience. So, that's kind of one attitude that we have for it. But we can measure our marketing spend against. You have to get a return on your investment, just like you do with the show itself.
Yeah, we think about it the same way. And I remember when 2 years ago when I first joined the company, and we were about to launch Laser Team, this movie from a company called Rooster Teeth, and I was talking to the marketing people and saying, what's the 48-hour radio plan? What's the, was it a national buy? I was asking all the questions I was used to asking in linear, and they said, we're not gonna start promoting this movie till it's up, and maybe even on the platform for a few days. And I was like, what? Why? And they said because the second we market it, the second the audience hears about it, they need to be able to click and see it. And if they can't, they're going to be really frustrated. So it's not going to happen until it's on and maybe even has a little word of mouth, and then we'll lean into it.
That's really interesting. And if you have a service that really is in the long tail business, it really changes your plan. We have a conundrum of we've got to live in both worlds, because on the one hand, for everything we've just spoken about, the old traditional open is you don't want to put all your resources against the open. On the other hand, if you don't open, you hear people all the time go, hey, we grew 100% in the L7. You go, yes, but you were at a 0. So you've got to get some critical mass upon open, but ultimately you're driving to a much longer experience. You're brand building over a length of time.
It's so hard to. I don't know that you can measure the success of marketing. I know a big part of it is, oh my God, look at that. And I don't know how you measure that. I think when we all saw Handmaid's Tale this year, it was, okay, that's a good one. And you can't bottle that. You hope for it. And I don't know that you can totally measure it. I know one thing that's really changed, though, is, and Adam Stotsky, who runs, is president of eNetwork, was using an example of a funnel, where the old version of marketing was pretty much the wide end of the funnel on top. You try to amass as big an audience as you possibly can, and then people will naturally drift away and you'll kind of be left with a core. And he was saying, and I really agree, it's almost a reverse funnel now. Now what you really need to do is speak specifically to a very strong core advocating audience.
Because social media is going to be
and
a
then
very
social
big
media amplifies that. To Craig's point earlier, when we look at our research now, the top box used to be excellent and very good. And very good is not top box anymore. The only thing that matters is excellent. So,
But how about the other two dynamics of awareness or intent to view? Because those are still certain metrics you need to hit. It used to be, were you aware of it? Yes, I am. Do you intend to view it? Yes, I do. That used to mean, I'm going to watch it. When does it come on? Oh, it's on 3 weeks. I'll be there. Now it's like, I absolutely am going to watch it, as you alluded to later, next year.
Yeah, I mean, I
That
think
becomes very tricky.
I don't want to speak on Suzanne's behalf, but I
Feel
think
free.
for a digital platform too, I mean, marketing for us is also about being very targeted and efficient. So if we have a show, we have a sense and a pretty strong ability to kind of figure out who else might like this show that are our customers, and we have multiple ways to make sure that they discover it. Again, we can't force them to finish it if they don't like it. There's no algorithm in the world is going to solve a pilot that's got a really boring first 10 minutes. But to the extent that you have something, you can kind of get it into the right hands of the right people.
You've got to spend a fortune in marketing now to make an impact because of what Kevin said, because there's close to 2,000 shows on the air, not to mention all of the UGC content and all of the other digital players and what they're offering on top of it. When I did Army Wives at Lifetime, we spent $10 million. You felt it. You felt that it was out there, right? I mean, I know ABC Family spent $10 million to launch Pretty Little Liars. You knew Pretty Little Liars was launching. Now, you want to make a dent like that, you want to feel it, you're talking $25 million minimum spend.
That's true.
What does it take for a show to break out besides marketing? Is it just about having a great concept? Like, will great shows, be able to break through like Handmaid's Tale did?
I mean, I think it has to start obviously with excellence. Regardless of the platform or kind of what age of popular culture or distribution we're in, I am a firm believer in that. But I think it has to feel different, and I think it has to feel like it's best in class. And I think people want to, you need to create something where people feel like they're missing out if they're not watching it.
Something that used to be almost optional is now, I think, more and more of the essence, which is, I think, a phrase Suzanne used, cultural resonance. So Handmaid's Tale in spades. But Mr. Robot, so let's assume that you all agree that it's a great show. I think it's a great show. It happened to be a timely show as well. So we knew we had something with Sam's original voice. We knew we had something with Rami, this unexpected star in the lead role. We had, I thought, a phenomenal marketing campaign. And then the Sony hack. And all of a sudden, we are something that is not only excellent, but something that's resonant. And I think you're seeing that more and more as a key to breaking out, is you need that additional leg.
And both of those examples you gave were about a timely event, whether it's our current government or whether it's the Sony hack or whatever's happening today, and the ability to pivot quickly and to be able to exercise whatever marketing collateral you have and exercise it quickly with your audience. And you're in a unique situation. You're dynamically engaged with your audience constantly. So to deliver that data and to deliver it in a manner that pivots their current understanding with how it resonates with the overall culture, which you guys, I think, obviously have done very successfully with Handmaidens. It's, but you can't predict the future, right? So you just have to sort of be prepared, right? The Boy Scout motto, and have your ducks in a row.
What I love, what you alluded to earlier, though, Jeff, is one of the things that gets me out of bed in the morning is, look, you can talk about data, we can talk about trends, industry complications, but one of the things I think got us all into the business is just that sort of magical thing that just happens where, you can get research, you can get a tracking report, you can look at where it is in the marketplace, but there is still that thing where you go, boy, that one feels pretty good. And then you bump into somebody and they go, that looks good. Claws. I read a script on a plane that I was handed by Sarah Aubrey. I walk back, I go, this is an unbelievable voice. We got to make this. She goes, great, that's the way I feel. And then, before it comes out, people go, that looks pretty good. And then it turns out like lots of people agree. And it's fun. And it is. I don't care how many shows. There are 2,000 shows. But there are a cluster of shows that for whatever reason, people still, I don't care. I mean, our means of consumption are going to make more targeted and more individual experiences, and we're going to design our own networks ultimately. However, human nature, I still think, gets to a point where at least of this panel, half of them will go, I think that thing looks pretty good, don't you? And that's pretty cool.
I totally agree with you. And I was actually on a panel recently where I used the word magic too. Like that there's a little bit of fairy dust and a little bit of magic, because I get the question I get asked so much since I joined Google. I was never asked this question before, is how does data affect what you do? And look, data does affect what I do, but it always has. I always worked hand in hand with research. I worked hand in hand with research at Viacom, and data only gets you so far. I can know that Karate Kid trends really high as a search term on YouTube, and people love it, and it's a piece of content they love and want to see a series about. So we bought the IP, and we're working with Sony, and we're developing Cobra Kai.
Awesome.
I don't know that series is going to be good. I mean, I hope, but and I want it to be, and I loved Karate Kid too, but. Depends on execution at the end of the day.
It's gut data gut.
Yep.
I mean, Craig's in a business where he gets first-person data. He can say there's a fertile pond of fish in, but at the end of the day, is that the show we're going to bet on or that one? And so it's gut data gut, and that's the fun of it and the magic of it. And quite often, like, thank God I don't take pitches anymore. I just kill myself. But I will tell you, just because I'm too burnt out on that process. But I will tell you that. In the system, somewhere along the line where I enter and I see casting or I read the script, it's there. It's just there in the beginning, and then it gets there into the culture, and you go, oh my God, that magic still happens.
Yeah, we say that, it might be, it's delivered by machine, but made by hand.
What worries you? What keeps you up at night?
Nothing at all.
My dog.
I mean, I would say it's the same thing that's kept me up always, which, is the show good enough? Do we have the right actor? Is this the right choice to make? Obviously, the competition has, increased that anxiety, or maybe that's just I've gotten older. But that's really what keeps me up in the middle of the night, is I saw the third episode. I loved it. I saw the third episode. I didn't love it. It's that part of it, again, kind of picking up on what we've talked about, that hasn't changed.
There's always something new to keep you up at night. As many times as you do it, it's, maybe not everybody feels this, but every time we launch a show, I'm always, oh my God, did we blow it, or did we do it right? I wish we had done this. I wish we had made another decision. Last night, we have a show called Sinner right now. Sinner has gone up week after week. It's the sixth week. Why was I up last night worrying if it was going to go up again? It's doing fine. It doesn't need to, but you know what? You can't stop
You get
yourself.
to do it again next season. I love the 1.5. I'm going to crib that, by the way. But because all of a sudden you're like, great, it went great the first season. Oh my God, we got to do it again next season. But that's just on the content side. Now, you have a whole nother host of, for some of us, systemic issues, which are exciting. I think I wake up running things through my brain from an excitement, not a fear level, but just on the, we always, for most of our careers, had to just worry about the content, which was tough enough. Now the experience has to match the content, and if it doesn't, quite often that creates another choke point for people.
And I worry about how and I'm the guy, one guy here is a software guy, but also believe in magic, that the changing industry, and as we're seeing, the changes even this summer, how that's going to impact distribution methodologies, the deal terms, the contracts that are constructed, and to give you guys the systems you need to be able to manage all that, because the complexity is getting explosive. The amount of information that we have to track in order to give you guys the information you need and make informative decisions, it's become really challenging. So what keeps me up at night is how much more the industry will change, and also hopefully that we don't swing the pendulum too far, based on some inputs that may be anecdotal, that we want to make sure that we're following an organic path.
What programming trends have you seen that you want to see more of? I mean, we saw This Is Us breakthrough as a family drama, but yet we're not seeing more of those family dramas come out on broadcast. Are there other things out there that you think people should be making, or are you not going to reveal your trade
You think
secrets?
I'm going to tell these guys?
Exactly.
By the way, there's very little white space out there, so if you have any little half an inch that you think it can inhabit, I swear to God, I actually genuinely like these guys. I'm not going to tell them.
What about on the deal-making side? Do you feel pressured to, scrap pilots or order straight to series, or do 2-season pickups at once, like the competition has been doing?
The deal making side is frustrating because Netflix and Amazon are spending just gobs of money. I mean, I look at a show like 13 Reasons Why on Netflix. It's $5 million an episode. I made shows like that for years at the WB for $2 million an episode. It's interior high school. It's interior, location. It's interior home. What's the $5 million
Dawson's Creek with
about?
suicide.
I mean, how much can you pay Selena Gomez an episode? I mean, it's frustrating. I mean, there's no rhyme or reason to what you're paying anymore for a license fee.
Nobody here is going to say the specific programming thing, but I'll tell you one thing that I think has changed, and also to the theme of the panel, has been allowed to change because of the way people are talking about shows, and that's, I think people come in now and pitch a world as much or more than they pitch a show. So it works in a number of ways. First, nobody's thinking about forever now. It's how many seasons. So people come in and actually have an idea of where the show's going to end, which was never part of my early development and production experience. And then on the outside, because of course these serialized anthologies, 8, 10 episode bites are an easier way, a lower barrier to entry. It seems to be something that the audience really wants. So that's a programming trend right now, is almost everybody seems to want 6, 8 episode bites, but unless you build out a world around it, what do you do to the audience for the other 40, 44 weeks when you're off the air? And when you do have a real world around a show, Game of Thrones, I'd say Mr. Robot, there's something to be done while the show is off the air.
Nurture.
So there's a way to communicate, there's a way to exchange interest, and Game of Thrones is in the dialogue when it's off the air as well. So I think more people are smart about that. Tim Kring did that with Heroes. There's more shows that people come in and it's not just, here's my script, here's my, how the storyline lays out. There's more thought about what's the whole world.
So how do you do that? How do you keep interest when shows are off the air? I mean, we've seen shows being off the air for like 12 or 18 months at a stretch, and then come back and the viewers come back. So how do you maintain that?
One way is what I'm talking about, which is you really activate that social media. Another is what Kevin was saying, and Kevin had an expression, show, don't tell, earlier, a couple of years ago. You did a marketing thing around that, and I think that we're all looking at our first seasons that way now. The first season goes out, and you want everybody possible to see the show so that they can tell other people as well, and then you're stimulating a dialogue. You're trying to get those hardcore advocates to tell other people about it. We had a research guy recently, I've heard about shows that are sticky, but he had a great expression, there's sticky and there's sneezy. So there's the shows that you want to stick around with, and then there are the things that you want to tell other people about. And that's a real key now, is finding shows that not only do you enjoy watching, experiencing, but you can't wait to enlist other people into the cause.
The healthy part of this, cost aside, ordering to series, to pilot, it really doesn't matter. It's appropriate for whatever the particular property is. But I think what you're saying, Jeff, is, back in the day, everybody was so focused on that pilot because it was such a sales vehicle in a monopolistic game. And now it really, the creative potential of the medium, everybody thinks about it so much more three-dimensionally, both in terms of the concept itself, but they really have thought about the world or where it's going, usually coming in the room right from the get-go. And that has resulted in really this creative, wealth that we have. And frankly, it's the reason why people from the feature business, the reason why television is at the top of the culture, is it's just a much more dynamic and creatively inspired medium now.
All those
Although-
things, go ahead, I'm
No, I was
sorry.
gonna say, although I really do still love the pilot process.
I like Pilot too. I did that thing that got a lot of press a few years ago about RAP Pilot. It was really out of context. I like a pilot. It was never about pilots. It was that I was in a broadcast system where we were locked into this monopolistic structure from the past, pilot season, which I felt was handicapping us in a world where there was SVOD and YouTube and even cable that buys,
Right, I agree with
which
that.
is better for the artistic process and frankly better for commerce. And we were still locked into this, and of course everybody's continued to do it, and it's very dopey in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't think you should be locked into scheduling, but like Jeff and I just did a pilot together, and it was great to work on a pilot because
I agree.
It just gives
It's R&D.
Yeah.
The pilot is also,
you get to kind of look and play.
none of us up
figure it out.
here make pilots in the old pilot broadcast method of, we're making 15 pilots, we hope we pick up 2. I will say we've made, I've been almost a 1-for-1 ratio. I don't make a pilot that I don't intend to go to series. If it doesn't, it's because something's gone seriously wrong. But that old, just throw a lot of spaghetti at the wall was
It's a
really...
much better business. A much better business for the creatives too, because they're seeing a faster track to getting on.
Well, frankly, there's too much competition. Even if I wanted to go to that, who wants to come in and say, wait, I got a 1 in 15 shot at your place? I can go to any one of these services times 100 right now.
To your earlier question, Deborah, about a way that you attract people is the fewer steps there are to success. Yes. I don't know if Craig agrees, but I know that Susanne and Kevin and I all believe in the pilot process. It's a you're still in the research and development mode when you're making a pilot. It costs millions of dollars, but you haven't engaged the full mechanism of the marketing, sales, all the teams around it. You can still play, you can still refocus, you can recast if you need to. I think it's really a valuable tool.
I agree. I mean, I actually think as TV gets more ambitious and more experimental and more willing to kind of break convention, pilots actually can become increasingly valuable. And I think we talk a lot about concept, we talk about worlds, but I think where TV's gotten really ambitious is in terms of tone. And tone is very delicate. I mean, I'll talk about Kevin's show's Claws has a very, very specific.
You're 5 degrees off the mark. It's a disaster.
Yeah,
I'd say that for many good things today.
Yeah, you're 5 exactly. It's a high dive. And you've got to nail Orange is the New Black. Very, tonally incredibly unique. And you kind of have to know that you're going to get that before you can go on to it. And
Handmaid's Tale, any more depressing, and you really just can't take it.
the laugh track, is it going to work or not?
You guys figured that out in the pilot, though, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I can't imagine Handmaids with the laugh track.
Well, one thing I wanted to ask, and Jeff, you may be able to speak to this better. We've looked a little bit about proprietary, right? The shows you're making for yourselves. What about the shows that you're actually making for someone else, right? Or, to the extent that you could think of that, Susanne, and you co-piloting something or selling as a studio to someone else. How do you see that process has changed?
There's an increasing verticalization. There's much more of a need as the ability to monetize ratings dwindles. Owning the asset becomes more important. So everybody feels. I think Fox makes 90% or more of FX's show, and so we're all trying to do that. You're also you need to have a strong value proposition to your creatives. You can't bring people into the tent and say, but you're only allowed to make a show for one of our home networks. Even in my case, where we have a pretty broad variety of networks, we need to let our people know that if the show is right for another platform, we'll take it there. I'd say the Grand Slam home run for people in my position is a hit show that services one of our home networks. You can hit a home run by producing a show for somebody else, and you can make a lot of money that way, and you need to keep that active.
if for all the reasons we've discussed, if you don't own the long tail, and it's not just adding up the bottom line, it's controlling that entire experience. And the third party licensing, in where the studio owned the property and you were just licensing it for a pretty narrow window, it makes it almost impossible to build the brand in the proper way in this day and age.
But so
Beyond the bottom line,
if I
which
can
also looks really bad. when you
jump
don't own.
on to something then. So how does that change when you're competing against somebody like a Netflix or an Amazon who's looking at it from a global perspective versus, for instance, you may not necessarily have networks in every country?
Yeah, I think it's different. I mean, they have a particular model, but I mean, look, we're on the precipice of being acquired, and our worldview is going to change in a much broader perspective on how we look at all of these assets. And I think you're going to see that trend in a lot of different ways over the next couple of years.
I think it also depends on the show. I mean, there are certain, we're a domestic-only service, and you talk about, how do you sell yourself to the talent? Right now, we are not a vertically integrated network. We will, the premium for us is to get the best show on the platform, regardless of, kind of where it comes from. We have a bunch of shows with Jeff. So that's a way you sell yourself. I will say, kind of when you're competing with these global rights situations, there are some categories of shows, like comedies, for instance, which don't travel well, and therefore kind of a global offer that's going to kind of take the burden off of selling that. That's attractive. Right. For some shows where there might be a ton of upside that a studio wants to not give away and control internationally, then having a domestic-only partner is an advantage. So I think it depends on each piece of content is so specific in terms of its cost and its viability in many different windows.
The value of content is becoming a very interesting thing, because it used to be the end game, that IP's value exported around the world. If you look at a case like Amazon, it is an add-on to Prime, which creates a vertical connection to a consumer in a shopping world. They didn't set out to say, we want to be the best in Hollywood. They said, hey, how can we provide extra value to the Prime consumer? I think they almost entered it as like not a loss leader business. Now they're executing it well, but that's what it is. It's a business to engage another vertical in their engagement of shopping. And you're going to see more of that kind of thing, value being applied from different perspectives and in different entities.
So just one last question. We're about to head into Emmy weekend. How much do Emmys really matter? Do they move the needle for you? Is it important to be able to say we're an Emmy winning?
No, but we love them.
Can you monetize them?
No, but we love them. No, you do love them. They're great. It's been long ago proven out that they really, in terms of ability to fall to your bottom line, it helps your perception. Perception has a certain amount of brand equity.
Yeah, it gives you cachet.
Cachet. It helps, again, with everything we talk about, attracting artists, and you feel really good. But from a bottom line business point of view, no. If anything,
Craig?
No, I mean, I think the value is it's just another conversation point to kind of it's another reason to kind of, start a conversation with a viewer who maybe hasn't seen it. There's a news cycle.
And that's true of any
it's
award,
not
though,
it's
right?
not a long-term sustainable addition to the revenue source, but it's just, again, it's crowded. People might not see a show the first time, so it's an opportunity to kind of just get in a news cycle and go there. And I think probably most importantly for all of us, we've all been doing this a long time. I would dare say many of us have worked on some not great shows too. So it's validating. It feels good.
Yeah, it's a good marketing asset, but so is any prestigious award. Sundance Film Festival award.
Emmys are better than that.
But you can attract more talent
as
with it, too.
we were saying, it puts you in the consideration set. People who might not have looked at the show will, and these days, any advantage you can get is great. Also, there is, while it's not, as Kevin said, I don't think you can really hook it to ratings domestically. It is important when people are selling it internationally. They like it. They like that cachet. And so I couldn't give you a hard number around it, but I know that our distribution people would rather sell a show that won an Emmy.
There are distribution deals that actually have bumps in them for certain, if they win certain awards and if they do certain things, and obviously for different territories, for different rights. But yes, there are bumps in there based on that.
Well, for all of you that are Emmy nominees, good luck. Thanks. Unfortunately, we've got to end it there, but thanks to all of you, and thanks you guys for coming.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Courtney.